How's it going, everybody? Today we are taking a look at BITOKU, and in this game, players will take on the role of spirits, fulfilling all sorts of tasks to prove that they are worthy of undertaking the duties of the great spirit of the forest.
Yep, so this game is published by De Beer Games, plays 1 to 4 players. This has some hand management, some dice placement. There are a lot of components, a lot of vibrant colors. So we're going to take a quick look and a quick overview of how to play, and then we'll come back up and give you our thoughts. The game is played over 4 rounds, each representing 1 year left for the Great Spirit. Each round is divided into 4 phases named for seasons. At the end of the winter phase of the last round, you will do final scoring, and at the top of the board you can keep track of the seasons and the rounds. It's important to note that this is not going to be a detailed how to play, but just an overview instead. So there's a lot of stuff on the board. So in general, you have a lot of things you can get down here. You got buildings, crystals, Matama spirits, you got dragonflies, you got this rock garden here. Then you move up into the area where you can place dice and take actions. And then you also have these Kodama tracks, so you can get some cards. Then you have this river here where you're going to be crossing the river to do more things. And up here in the hills are other additional spots that you can do stuff. And then you have the paths of wisdom up here where your pilgrims will be going on journeys. And then you have a stash of resources and amulets and some other goodies. And each player has their own player board with tons of goodies. You have these pilgrims, some that start awake and some that are sleeping across the board. And then each player starts with a 1, 2, and 3 value dice on these spots. You got buildings, you have this that is going to be the BITOKU path, and then some other supplies in your starting deck, and a player aid. So everyone will start in the season of spring, and first everyone is going to summon the yokai, where you're going to be drawing up until you have 4 cards in your hand, and then you are going to discard down to 3, so you have 3 cards left. So let's just say I discarded that one. So this is the cards you can use in this round. And then if you happen to have any purple crystals, for instance, if I had a purple crystal there, then you can activate that benefit. Now in summer, players are going to take turns by choosing one of the 4 options until all players have chosen to pass. So the first option is you can play a yokai card from your hand into one of these spots, or you can use an unlocked die on your player board and place it out on the main board. Or you can cross the river if you have some dice that are available to cross over. And the last thing you can do is pass. Now when you take the action of playing a yokai card from your hand, you can choose any open spot that you have. Let's say we want to place the card here. Whenever you do that, you're going to unlock the corresponding die. So all these dice have started in the locked position. Alright, but whenever you unlock it by playing a card, you move it up to here. And then if you have any pink crystals associated with that spot, then you can also gain the benefit of that crystal. And then you can take the action of the card that you have played. The second action you can do is using an unlocked die on your player board. So for instance, this one is unlocked. Now if you have any of these amulets, you can use any of these to basically pip up. So if I wanted to spend this one here, for instance, I could make this become a 4. And then at that point, you can take this dice and place it out on the board. So for instance, I'll just place this one right here, and then you'll take the corresponding action. You may only use a forest action if the die you place has an equal or higher value than all other dice already in that region. So for instance, the other player has a value 3, so if we had played that value 4 there, it would be legal. Note that any dice that have crossed the river over to the hills are no longer counted as being in the forest region. So after placing the die, and if it's legal, you can use the forest action and or one of the building actions in the region. So for instance, there is a building tile out here, so if you have a 3 or greater, then you can take this action as well. So there are different spots, and depending on what value you have placed, allows you to do different things. So this region typically lets you get dragonflies, which are down the bottom of the board, and Matama spirits. A lot of times there's cost associated, and eventually if you have a pair like of these, you can join them together and get the benefits. Some of the benefits you get immediately when you pick up one of them, and then some are when you join them together. This spot typically deals with movement points, and most spots also have this which shows you can move Kodamas. So each forest region has this Kodama track, and each player has a Kodama here. And basically, it's just kind of whoever's furthest along the track will get the most points. Whoever's second, then the second place and third. And then, so this will show you, so first place will get 5 points, second place get 3, and third will get 1. So it's just a bunch of small little tracks on the different forest regions on the board. There are 3 main things you can do with movement points. You can use 1 movement point to move along the BITOKU path, and you will be collecting more cards and the path will continue, and you will be able to get rewards this way, and it's also a way to get points at the end of the game. Another way is if you have any available pilgrims, which these are available, you can start a pilgrim on a path, on the path of wisdom. So you typically can start at the gate. So let's say we want to put this guy right here and start there. And for another movement point, you can move the pilgrim. So if I had, let's say I had 2 more movement points, okay? I could go, for instance, 1, 2, or I could move this one, or I could also go 1, 2 and end the journey. Whenever you end the journey, you flip him over and he's there for the rest of the game, but you get those benefits. This region deals mainly with getting resources. This region over here mainly deals with getting buildings and building them and getting crystals. On the lower part of the board down here is where you can purchase buildings and crystals. Whenever you buy crystals, they will be put on your board. So the orange and purple crystals will go up here, and they will basically unlock pilgrims as well. So this will go here, and you'll also be able to get points at the end of the game from that. And now this pilgrim becomes available and gets moved to this spot. If you get pink crystals, they will go in these locations here and get triggered whenever you play cards. So let's say we wanted to do this building here. Now in order to do buildings, you have to pay the cost. So you're going to start with the leftmost one, and you have to pay the cost listed down below. And these will also be giving you points for all of the ones that you have built at the end of the game. So, and then you're going to place it out on the board, matching the color of the tile. So let's say I want to place this one here. And then you're going to put your building on top, because now if people use this building, you will get passive benefits. This region deals with turn order and also a way to get amulets, resources, movement points, or vision cards. Vision cards are ways to basically get points at the end of the game. If you complete it, then you get points, but however, if you don't complete it, you will lose some points. And whoever is highest on these spots here will basically be first in turn order. So the turn order up here might be rearranged depending on this at the end of the round. The third option you have on your turn is crossing the river. So what you're going to do is move your die across the river. The die has to have a value of 2 or more. So here's the river. We have some available dice here, but this is ours. Okay, so we can't move this across the river. Now when you do that, you have to lose a point on your die. So this is going to become a value 3. However, if this had been a value 6 here and I wanted to cross the river, then this would actually have to go all the way down to a 3. Once you've done that, then you can gain one of the available benefits. There's 3 listed here. Whichever one you choose, you're going to cover up with this marker so it's not available. So basically you can take this Yokai card, or you could take this BITOKU card, and then there's a combination of things that you can take 2 of. The fourth option you have is passing. When you do that, you're not going to play again for this phase, and you can only pass after playing 3 Yokai cards and placing your 3 dice on the board. In the next season of Autumn, you're going to do the turn order, and whoever's highest on this area will be first in turn order. So there's only 1 dice out here, which is this player, so they remain in first, and everything else stays the same. And winter is kind of like a cleanup phase. This is where you're going to take your guardians back home, so you're going to bring them back and put them on these spots. You're going to take your Yokai cards back, discard, draw back up. Well, actually, you'll draw in the next season. If you have 5 or more Yokai cards out here, then you can actually choose to score one if you want. So for instance, this one, if I wanted to score this, it would give me 3 victory points. So you would be putting all your scored cards up in this region, and those are going to be out for the rest of the game. Then you are going to advance the round track, and then you're also going to prepare for the game for the next round. Within your player aid, there is a decent amount of details on the iconography for you to reference if you need. After the final round, you will do a final scoring, and there's multiple ways to get more points. So first, you're going to trigger any of your purple crystals and get those benefits. Then you're also going to figure out your points for your BITOKU cards. and you will get victory points based off the number of different BITOKU types you have. So we have 2 different ones here, so that would happen to give us 2 points. But if we had 7 different ones, we would have gotten 22 points. Then you also have this region of your board where you can score points for your rocks, depending on your pilgrims next to it. And then any revealed points are here, like for instance, these 2 victory points, this one here, any buildings, you're gonna add up all those points as well. Then players will also earn victory points for the position of their Kadamas on each of the Kadama tracks. And then whoever is in first turn order will score some points, 3 to be exact. And then each player, if they can fulfill their vision cards, they get points. If they don't, they might lose some points. And then there's also a way to get points by adding up the value of your dice and your resources, and you're going to be dividing by 4, and you're going to be getting more points that way. And whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. And that was an overview of BITOKU. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on, so we did not cover every single rule, but that was just an overview. So I really like this game. Mm-hmm. What is your overall opinion?
Overall opinion on this complex-ish game, I actually liked it.
Very surprised, guys. I'm so surprised, but hey, I'm gonna take it. He likes one of the complex games I like. So let's go into some details about kind of what we liked, didn't like, some things that could be issues for some people. So first off, in this game, there are lots of things you can do. Mm-hmm. It's very Euro. You got so many options, a lot of different ways to score points, which can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Generally bad for me.
So, I actually typically like lots of things going on. That's kind of up my alley.
And I don't.
Not for him. But what's weird is he liked this game.
I don't know why.
I cannot figure out why. I think pre-production helps make it more enjoyable.
100%.
For some people, this is probably not going to be their game. If you like lighter games, this is not a light game. There's a lot to this. Now with that, there's also a lot of iconography. A lot. So that can be an issue to get started, but if you can kind of work your way through it, it's a beautiful game.
Yeah. In fact, that was one of my downsides to this game was kind of the barrier to entry. And as she's teaching me this game and I'm seeing all this iconography and I'm just thinking, what is going on here?
All right, you see this, guys? This is a player aid. All right. Now this is I love player aids, and I found this one to be very helpful, and especially because, guys, 2 pages of iconography here. So there is a lot to kind of, work through. So this can be a big downside for people. Yes, it was a little rough to kind of get started just to figure out where all these things are, but I'm fine with that. That's not an issue I typically have with the games. I enjoy lots of stuff going on. But I'm just surprised that you were able to work through that.
Me too.
I don't know what it is, but typically for most people, if you don't like a lot of stuff going on, a lot of iconography, this is not going to be for you.
Well, if you look at these icons though, like they're little pictures. They're not like little weird representations of things. Like they're actually little pretty pictures.
Well, yeah.
Little pretty color pictures, not little like black shapes of things or something.
Yes, they are pretty pictures.
If that makes any sense.
But there's like little differences on some things, just little differences on some stuff that can be problematic. But I mean, I found this player aid to be very useful for me because there is a lot of iconography. You need something like this in this game.
The player aid
so that helped a lot. But if you don't like tons of iconography, then this game is not going to be for you.
And
or you could be surprised and really surprised.
Because generally I am not one for iconography. It drives me nuts. And if you need a player aid of this size, I want nothing to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah. So another thing, which again I like, but for some people can be a problem. I know you definitely would not participate in this. Is the setup. There is a lot of setup in here. There's a lot of components. I mean, this box is full of components. So a lot of plastic baggies and stuff. Obviously, you could buy and insert if you wanted to, but it comes with just lots of plastic baggies, a lot of different components. So there is a lot of setup. I enjoy setup, so that's not a problem for me. That would be a problem if Justin were to set up this game. He would not do it. And so if you don't like setting up lots of stuff in a game, then you might shy away from this one as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't mind it, then moving on, because I think it's fun, because I just like lots of components.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
To each his own.
So going back for me to like the barrier of entry, we talked about the iconography. Generally, that is a spot for me that I'm like, But I was able to navigate that. And, as far as that barrier to entry goes, it was within the first round, I kind of figured out the way that the game is played. So, yes, as Jody's explaining all the rules, as she's showing me all these icons and confusing the heck out of me, once we started actually playing the game, it kind of all fell into place, and it only took maybe a round to really figure out what was going on.
I guess that's true. So there is, like we talked about, a lot of iconography, but if you kind of think about the gameplay, it can be a simple concept of a turn structure, because the main, there's different phases of the game, different seasons, but the main heart of the game is summer, where you take different actions. And there's really 4 things you can do on your turn. You can play a Yokai card from your hand. You can use an unlocked die on your board. You can cross the river or pass. So, maybe the simplicity of the turn structure kind of helped you.
Yeah, and really there's only, I guess there's 4 things, but you have to have first played an unlocked dice in order for you to cross the river.
Right.
So there's kind of, this had to happen before you did this, so it's just like, it's not as complicated as when listening to it being explained, it was confusing. But once we started to actually do it and go through it, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of, complexity in regards to all the different things you can do on your turn, but your turn structure, if it makes sense, is kind of simple. You just choose one of these things to do. Now, the last thing I can think of that could be problematic for some people is the rule book was of decent size. There were a fair amount of pages you had to read.
True.
Now, I will say though, I thought that the organization, the layout, I felt like all that was good. Mm-hmm. There were a few issues I had with some of the wording, but overall, if you can get past the long rule book, I thought it was well laid out. Fairly good instructions, good pictures, it was vibrant, it wasn't one of just those blah rule books. So I think that had something good going for it. Now like I said, we did have a couple issues with a few rules. I had to look on the forum, but you actually, I figured it out.
I actually figured out, because as she was going through the English rule book, I actually had the Spanish rule book open too. And I was kind of reading through where she was trying to figure things out, and I was reading it, and it was like, it actually clarified itself in the Spanish rule book, but not the way that it did in the English.
Yeah. So in the English, so I think the issue was dealing with the
Tory
where
gate.
where the pilgrims could start on the path up top, the paths of wisdom. It mentioned gate, but I was trying to figure out, exactly. And this was us trying to figure out hash the rules the first time. So I was like, gate, there's so many different types of things going on, so I was just a little confused. But when you read the Spanish rule book and it said Tory gate, I'm like, oh, okay.
Duh.
So you like the Spanish, there's a Spanish rule book and a Spanish player aid.
Yeah, I used the Spanish player aid the whole time,
so you enjoy that.
Fun, so.
You enjoy that.
Yeah.
So some good things to talk about this game. There are quite a few. Now, first off, it is a looker, guys.
Yes.
Now, some people could think it was busy.
I did initially, and I still kind of do. But
it could be busy.
But once you know where everything is,
I love the way it looks. I love all of the vibrant colors. I love, you got the river that you can cross the river. I like your player boards. I love all the components. I love the cards. I really just love the aesthetic of this game overall.
Yeah, it's pretty. It reminds me, and she thinks I'm weird for saying this, or some people might not agree with me, but It reminds me of Reavers of Midgard in the sense that it's just a big, sprawling, pretty board, and it's a point salad kind of game. And for whatever reason, this is essentially
some dice placement, right?
And dice placement. So yeah, I guess it does remind me of that as well. So,
but it is a different.
It's a completely different game, but it gave me that kind of a vibe, and I like Reavers of Midgard. So it's one of those bigger sprawling games that I actually like, and this kind of reminded me of that. So that's part of the reason I think why I like it.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe. So obviously this has a lot of dice placement in this game, and dice placement. So worker placement with dice workers is one of my favorite mechanisms. I generally tend to like those. This one's kind of high for me, guys. I really, really like this one. I like also that there is this combination of, placing your dice out there to take actions with playing yokai cards, where you unlock the dice that you can use, but when you play the card, you can also use the ability on the card, any possible, I think it was pink crystals that are connected with that spot, you can activate that. So I liked this balance of dice workers, dice placement with playing your card and hand management. I found that to be very enjoyable, because I know some dice placement games, you just place out your dice, but this
and you're done.
Yeah, but this one, I felt like it just had some good combinations of mechanisms I really liked.
And I also like the idea, you kind of touched on it, where when you place the dice, you're not necessarily done with that die.
Yeah.
So once you place it out there, then you have the option of crossing the river, and you use it for another action. I guess that's the word we can call it. But
crossing the
river is the action,
yeah.
so that you can do something else. And so I just found the fact that it wasn't just place the die and forget about it, or do that action and forget about it. It was place the die, do that action, and then later on you might be able to actually use that die again to do something else. I like that it wasn't just boom, done.
Yeah, definitely. And another part I really liked, I liked a lot about this game. There's just so many things about this game I like. Pretty much almost every aspect of this game I like. But I also really was just very intrigued with all the uses with your pilgrims that you could do. I mean, your pilgrims, you can unlock the pilgrims to use on your rocks on your board to score points, put them out on the paths, and as you unlock some of your pilgrims, you reveal more spots where you can put crystals and get benefits or points, depending on what the crystals you get. I just found it to be fascinating how, and the pilgrims, on one side it's like they're asleep and the other side's awake. Mm-hmm. It was just when I first saw that component, I was like, this is a little quirky, but I don't know. I just found it to be kind of enjoyable. I kind of really liked the pilgrims, and especially the paths of wisdom, where your pilgrims go on the journeys, mm-hmm. and then wherever you stop to take the benefit, you flip them over to the sleep side, and that's where they've rested for their journey. I don't know. I just really enjoyed that part of the game. I also really liked that you also had your own little BITOKU path over here. You had your little your little critter that was moving along the path to take benefits.
Yeah, it starts on your board and makes its way off as you add more.
And there's just it's a little trail as you add more cards. I really liked that aspect of the game as well. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can score points. Then you have the Kodama tracks. That was a hoot for one game. You didn't play. I played with some friends, Shinlei and Alicio. I know you're watching. So we had quite a tug of war on one of the Kodama tracks. It was like I think he moved me back and passed me, then I moved him back, then passed him, and then other way around. It was like 3 swappings throughout the game. It was just like a battle over this one Kodama track. It was pretty entertaining. So did you like a lot of the Kodama tracks, or did you? I can't remember if you used that a lot.
Yeah, I think I remember you and we definitely had some little battles on the tracks.
We did?
For sure.
I don't remember.
We were definitely frustrating each other a little bit on that, and then but because of the busy board, I actually missed one of them and had no idea it was even there.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that bothered me, was at the end of the game, you started counting up this other Kodama track that I was like, I never even saw that. So.
Yeah, I think it's the one, which can be confusing,
up
but
in the
it's the
middle.
one area that's kind of up across the river.
Crossing the river,
yeah. So I could see where that was a little confusing. I also really liked the concept of, whenever your dice cross the river, they pip down. So, throughout the game, you want to keep crossing the river to get more benefits and do stuff. But your dice are going to be pipping down, so you're going to have less strength whenever you take actions because you get more powerful actions the higher pips you have. So it's important to get, I believe they're called amulets. Basically, that it has like a 1 or 2 or 3 where you get those to use them to help pip back up your dice.
Right.
So I also liked that kind of concept as well of just having to be prepared and, I want to cross the river, but at the same time I want those high values. So it's important to get those amulets.
And I remember I had something built up in my engine to where I was continually getting those, and I could pip up over and over and over again. So.
Yeah, that's good. So if you had to pick one main area of the board, or one action, or not action I should say, but one aspect of the game you really liked the most, what would it be?
It's hard to pick one. So I kind of focused more on one side of the board, I would say. The side where it was, creating the trout, or the, what's it called? The pilgrimage.
The paths of wisdom.
The paths of wisdom.
So a lot of movement points.
A lot of movement points and things like that. But then also I was creating a lot of like the dragonflies and the
Matama spirits.
And the Matama spirits and making them come together. So I was all of that was kind of on one half of the board, so I was kind of looking over there kind of the whole time. And that's kind of how I end up playing these games. I'll like pick 1 or 2 things and I'll just kind of stick with them.
See, that's my problem is I get so excited about all these different things I can do that I don't often have the best strategy because I just want to have fun. I just want to go do some of everything. And so sometimes that's not the best strategy because you're not maximizing your points. But
you still end up beating.
But I just have fun trying to touch do some of everything. It's just fun. But if I had to pick a couple of things that I always tend to gravitate toward, were I always would do a lot of BITOKU cards. So I would always have a fairly decent long path of the BITOKU. I just love those, probably because they're really cute critters on the card.
I did too when we played. I actually did that as well. I mean, you get that when you cross the river though, right?
Yeah, so I just for some reason love that part of the game. And I also tended to do a lot of buildings as well, because you can get passive benefits if people take your building action.
And that's I think where she beat me was because I didn't do a lot of the buildings
I did do a lot of buildings. Yeah, I tend to do that whenever I play this game. So overall, I think this is an excellent game, and I highly recommend it. Unless some of the caveats mentioned before, if you don't like some of those things, then this may not be for you. But for me, I love this game. This is definitely staying in the collection, and I am excited to play this anytime anybody wants to play with me.
So, if you don't like this type of game, or if you think you don't like this type of game, but if you can get somebody else to set it up for you, and if you can get somebody else to teach it to you, at least give it a try. That's what I would say, because for whatever reason, this one worked for me.
And that makes me so happy. I'm so happy that he liked this game. I was so surprised. Because when he sat down and played, I'm like,
this is gonna be a long one.
He's not gonna like it. But then he liked it, and I was like, yes! So anyway, that is our overall thoughts of BITOKU. Hope you guys liked this review. Feel free to give us a thumbs up if you liked it, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.
See ya.